Venga, buenas tardes. Pues Javier Tebas, presidente de la Liga, va a hacer una exposición inicial al principio y después ya hacemos turno de preguntas, ¿vale? Javier, cuando quieras.
Vale, buenas tardes a todos. Es público que hemos tenido una asamblea hoy con mucha expectación. Pero bueno, recordar temas importantes de la asamblea, que el primer punto del día era la renovación del convenio colectivo con AFE, ¿no? Que se alarga hasta el 2026. Han cambiado ciertas cosas que ya, me imagino que ya os las iremos comunicando, de salarios mínimos, pero bueno, que es ya la relación con el sindicato. Pues los que lleváis tiempo, ya sabéis que hace años era de conflicto continuo y de lío, y ahora ya no. Yo creo que tenemos una relación muy buena con el sindicato AFE y con la clara voluntad y de tanto el sindicato como nosotros de trabajar conjuntos en muchos temas para el futuro, ¿no? Hemos dicho, pues hemos disminuido el premio de antigüedad, hay muchos temas laborales que se han tocado, hemos aumentado el fondo social también para el sindicato, o sea, que se han conseguido cosas, yo creo que razonables para el ámbito de los jugadores,
no sé si hay que traducirlo,
porque creo que también es importante que los jugadores pues tengan podamos darle la máxima calidad posible para tener el mejor espectáculo, y eso se ha aprobado por una gran mayoría, ¿no? No recuerdo las votaciones, en esta casa las votaciones a la búlgara, se vota secreto, no tengo que recordarlo, que los votos son secretos, hay un mando que se entrega aleatoriamente al entrar a las reuniones, y con ese mando aleatorio que se entrega, pues cada uno
with a random remote that is handed out
y
when
sale el
they
resultado
come
de la
into the
votación, y
room,
no sabemos
and
nadie
people vote
quién ha votado, porque
with
no
that
con el
remote,
mando que está
and
ahí sentado,
nobody
¿no?
knows who's voted
Aleatorio, ¿no?
what,
Entonces hay una
because
mayoría,
they don't vote with
yo no sé si han sido
a device
36
that's
o 47
sitting in
votos
front
que
of
firma el
them.
convenio, ¿no?
There have been
Y
36 or
luego ya hemos
37
entrado
votes
en el
on
tema
the
también
agreement
arbitral, sobre
issue.
todo primero
And regarding
pues, con
the
todo lo que está pasando,
refereeing
esta
issue,
desazón
with everything
digamos, dos
that's
temporadas,
happening,
como
this
diciendo, ¿no?
concern
Y
that
hemos
we've been
hecho
talking about for 2
una
seasons,
encuesta anónima,
and we've carried out a
con un sistema
survey,
de votación
also an
que pedía
anonymous
19
survey,
preguntas, donde pues
with 19
desde nuestra
questions.
posición de liga era conocer un
And
poco en
from
muchos
our position
aspectos
as La
cuál
Liga,
era
we wanted to
la
know
idea de los clubes, o sea, porque hay muchas veces que
what
esto es un tema que piensa que
the
es muy
clubs
arbitral,
thought,
la liga no lo vive día a día porque no
because
tiene
the
las
referee
competencias
issue
ni las
is
quiere, ¿no?
not something
Eso
that La Liga
eso no es verdad.
experiences
La Liga de
every
Fútbol
day because
Profesional,
we
lo que
don't
dice
have the
Federal como la Liga
competencies
Deportiva, se
and
quiere las
we don't want
competencias
them.
arbitrales. No es
People
verdad.
say that
Además,
we want the
desde
refereeing
hace años
competencies,
lo
and it's
vengo
not
diciendo,
true.
lo voy a tener
And
que
I've been
repetir,
saying it
porque
for
no
years,
queremos
and I'm going to have
la
to
Liga
repeat it again
competencias
because
sobre los
the La
árbitros.
Liga doesn't want
Es un tema que tiene que quedar muy
competencies
claro,
over the referees.
porque además
This has to be
consideramos
made
que
very
como
clear
institución
because we feel
no es
that
el lugar
as
adecuado
an
en España, al
institution,
menos,
it's
donde debe estar
not the proper
representado
place,
el tema
at
de los
least in
árbitros. O sea, que
Spain.
quede muy claro
It's
que
not
no.
the place
Lo que sí, además de estas
to
encuestas que
manage
hemos
the
hecho,
referee issue. But
hay
based on
19
that
preguntas
survey we've carried out,
de
there
si
are
los criterios
19
les parecen claros o no,
questions
pues bueno, que
as to whether they think the criteria are clear or
saber cuándo
not,
hay que designar un árbitro antes, pues también hemos preguntado
and
respecto
when
a
should the
cómo
appointed
creemos que
referee be
debería ser la
announced.
organización
And
arbitral, ¿no? Y
we've
que nosotros, pues,
discussed
una amplia
what we
mayoría
think
también
the referee
ha
organization
ido en
should
la
be like.
línea de una organización
And
arbitral tipo como tiene el fútbol inglés,
the
¿no? Que es
idea is to
el
have
fútbol inglés, en
something
el,
similar to English
donde se
football, not the
designan
Premier
por una
League, but
compañía
English football
mercantil
in
que está
general,
compuesta
where
por
they're
la Premier
appointed
League, por la
through an
Federación Inglesa y
independent
por
company that's
la
appointed
asociación que
by the Premier
gestiona la
League, the
Championship y
English
las otras
Federation,
categorías,
and the
y ahí hay,
association with
pues,
the
digamos,
Championship and the
un
other
director
categories.
ejecutivo
And there's
que es
an
especialista en el mundo de los
executive
árbitros, y
manager
ahí pues
there that's
toman
a
un
specialist
periodo de
in the
decisiones
refereeing
con
world.
reconocimiento
And
de
then,
ascensos y descensos de
just
todo lo que hoy podríamos
based
decir
on all their knowledge
que
they
el
have of
técnico de
promotions,
del
relegations,
arbitraje del fútbol profesional
and
de la
everything
liga, ¿no?
that's
Pues
handled
esa es
by
una
the
línea a la que vamos. Somos
referees
conscientes, además, de
committee.
esa
And
línea
that's what
aquí de
we're
acuerdo
aiming
con la
for.
federación, y
And we
consideramos,
are aware
yo
that
también
that
tengo que decir
requires an
que ese
agreement with the
tipo
federation,
no está
but
prohibido por FIFA ni
that
está prohibido
isn't
por
banned
UEFA, ¿no?
by
De hecho,
FIFA
la Premier
or
League lo
by
tiene y la
UEFA. In
Bundesliga,
fact, the
incluso
Premier League
la
has it.
temporada
The
pasada, una
Bundesliga
compañía mercantil que está
started last year,
51%
a
la
company
Federación
that
Alemana de
is owned
Fútbol y 49%
51% by the German Football Federation and
la Bundesliga,
49% by
y bueno, pues es un poco que
Bundesliga.
si hay acuerdo con la
And
federación, y lo
it's
que
a
nosotros
model, if there's
queremos
an
y
agreement with the
nuestro
Federation,
tema es sentarnos a hablar con
and that's what we
todos los
want. We want
actores que
to sit
puedan
down with
participar
all the
en ese
actors
proyecto que queremos
involved in this
intentar
project
trabajar,
that
convencer a
we want to
la
work on.
federación como institución
to convince the federation as an institution, the referees as an institution. We also want to give room to the players. We'll have to see how. We feel that they should also be involved in that company and manage the refereeing world again, as they're doing in England or Germany, and have them self-manage themselves. We want to intervene in anything at all in that area. And after this, Joan Laporta gave an intervention. First, there was 5 minutes from the lawyer handling the case of the Barcelona court, explaining the landmarks and the activity of LaLiga. Then the chairman of Football Club Barcelona had 20 minutes to give his explanation, which is a summary, a very short summary of what we heard yesterday at the press conference. And then we've had the interventions from a number of clubs, my intervention, and the conclusion with respect in education, because we weren't going to carry out an interrogation of Football Club Barcelona. And Joan Laporta defended that the payments to Negrin didn't have the aim of buying referees or influencing referees. And the clubs, in their vast majority, respectfully, the vast majority of those that spoke said that that isn't normal, that it isn't usual, that's not done, under those payments weren't proper, and that they should be investigated. And it's not a Javier Tebas issue, this of appearing as a party to the case. It's LaLiga as an entity, and the document, La Vanguardia accused me of it being false, and it's not a false document. And that document was examined by the delegate committee before taking it to court. Well, to the prosecutor, it was then. So explanations have been given, and no club said they understood them, because he didn't actually clarify anything. And that's the way things have gone, and I'm here to answer your questions. But I've also asked for a polite debate. It was a debate, as again, not an interrogation between the clubs and Laporta, because I asked for this at the beginning. There was no reason to attack the club, but it has been made very clear that the explanations haven't been convincing to anybody, and that this procedure will continue wherever, in Spain, in the courts, and then there is the issue of UEFA. But we don't feel that the explanations have been any clearer than yesterday's press conference. Before you start, I'd like to remind you to give your name and outlet. Those that are following by streaming on YouTube, you can put your question via WhatsApp or over the phone, 34 629 90 72 22. And we'll start here, and then we'll move to the question via streaming, if there are any. La Sexta, please. Just a second, please. The microphone. Sergio Fernandez. I would like to know that in the round of answers to Laporta's speech, Real Madrid, that's the only club that has appeared against Barcelona individually, has said anything, which we believe they didn't. And how do the rest of the clubs feel about them keeping quiet about this? Well, I haven't had time to ask the clubs how they feel about it. That's not so important, whether Madrid and Laporta have spoken or not. Football doesn't revolve around Real Madrid. It revolves around all the clubs, and they feel that they're sufficiently represented by La Liga in the court case, and we've explained all the landmarks that the delegate committee already knew about. We've explained it to all the clubs. And all the assemblies will explain what's happening in the court. And any club can appear, but they felt that in this case it should be LaLiga. I don't know whether any club will appear in the future. If they want to, that's fine. But any club can go if they wish to. La Sexta. Andrés, for who won this en directo, La Sexta. I would like to know how Joan Laporta paid the payment of 7 million to the chairman of the referees committee. What did he pay that for, and do you believe him? Well, he said the same thing he said yesterday at the press conference, as I've said. It was for refereeing advice. I personally said that no. I've told him that I don't believe he's given an explanation. It's hard to explain, but it's not understandable. And I've been saying it for days. These aren't sufficient explanations, and it's not understandable to pay the vice chairman of the technical referees committee for so much for so many years. And we've added something. We've presented a document to the court because Enrique Negreida's son isn't being investigated, and we've asked him to be investigated because there are at least signs that he participated. He wrote the 640 reports, but apparently he also had dinner with the referees the night before the match, so we want him to be investigated too.
Ahora sí. Damián López de RACU.
Damián López from RACU. Recently, especially at Monday's press conference, Laporte has been very harsh against you. He's accused you of providing false evidence, of being an instigator, etc. And now that you met, did he use the same tone, or what was the reaction? Well, I imagine that we both dropped a level when meeting face to face. About the false documents, I've explained it before. They're not false documents. They were in the safe of Mr. Contreras, and he wasn't just a passerby. And especially in this case, because Negreida's son billed to Juan Contreras' company, who collected the reports and took them in. It was a document that was in his safe when Juan Contreras' home was searched. So therefore, it's not a false document. What we did is submit it. And we submitted a number of comments. And there were certain names, Lawyer and Roman, Sandro, Josep Maria, and other names I can't remember. And we submitted that, and we said, well, maybe it refers to these people. What a coincidence that they're the same names. But if it's other people from 15 years ago, well, that document won't be such strong evidence. But there were other documents as well. And I made the front page of La Vanguardia regarding this false document, together with the Ukraine war. But these aren't false documents, they're real documents. And when we said Roman González Pontes, Sandro Rosell, and Maria Bartomeu, we submitted that information to a judge. And I don't know whether the judge knows who they are, but we just said that it could be them. And I'm glad it's a coincidence. I know Sandro, Maria, and Roman. And as I explained to Joan Laporta, I also knew the Osasuna officials that are going to be going to prison in a few days' time. It wasn't in the media as much as this case, because in the Osasuna Betis match, which ended up in the Supreme Court, and there's been a ruling in January, and some of the officials will be going to prison soon. So La Liga can't turn a blind eye to these issues. And a lot is said about the presumption of innocence. And I say it, and I said it at the Vanguardia forum before I was put on the front page. I don't think Barcelona bought referees, but we're not going to wear ourselves out on that line of investigation.
Because we believe that with those payments they wanted to exert their influence on something. Or did Negreira play a role or not? I don't know. Was it just a swindle? You all know about swindles, and I don't really know. But well, just because you think you can exert an influence, well, that could be considered to be something that has to be punished. But in any case, this is what I said in the past. If we forget about the sport prescription issue, well, yes, it would be a very severe kind of behavior, and that has to be clarified. And this has not yet been clarified from our point of view. Well, I'm from the Agencia EFE, and yesterday there was a communique, and everybody spoke about the impediments of the existence right now with the referees. Do you think that there is a problem with the referee collective? And don't you think that the tone should be reduced a bit when we talk about referees? And what do you think, talking about this issue? There seems to be a conflict between Madrid and Barcelona on which is the team that was favored by Franco's regime. Well, when I saw this discussion, with due respect for everybody, of course, it reminded me of when I was 19 or 20 years old, when you went out with your friends, and we were friends from Madrid and Barcelona, and you ended up at 5 o'clock in the morning discussing who'd taken away the cup from who. You ended up having that kind of conversation. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, you can just imagine that it's always a very interesting issue, especially when you're 18 or 19. So it's a debate that is now, I think, is attracting our attention to other issues and not the essential ones that we should be focusing on. So I think that we are thinking only about the future. We're not thinking about the past. And this reminded me of when I was a young man. I went out with my friends and we argued about that issue. What other question was there? Oh, yes. Well, I think that in yesterday's note that was released by a group of referees, and I'm not sure if it's all of the referees or not, I'm not sure who signed that or didn't sign it, but they even spoke about the videos shot by Luis Gil. And they are really silly, and I think that they don't really help at all, and cause effect and even violence. And well, that is not true. There's no such thing as a cause and effect. Are people angry? Yes, of course. But does this have an influence on the issue of violence? I don't think so. And if I'm not mistaken, when the Negreira case cropped up, we from La Liga, we sent note to all clubs to be very careful about the referees, because yes, there was a very nasty environment because of the banknotes that people were throwing on the pitches. And we don't want people to feel uncomfortable about this, and we didn't want to have any cause and effect. And people were apparently angry, and that's a real factor. But that doesn't mean that it's something that has produced that situation of violence with the referee in Melilla. We want to collect the referees collective, honestly. And we're talking about sitting around a table to discuss the future path that has to be followed in the case of the referees organization. In other words, we want to see those models that work, like in England and Germany. Why not try them out in Spain? We can do so with the help of the referees committee and the federation or whatever. But there's a problem here, which is obviously a significant issue, and it's something that we have to accept, and that's okay. So you have to find solutions, and that's what we managers are here for. And we're not supposed to be putting the blame on other people either. Anais, over there, please. Yes, I received a tweet today, and that is that if the referees' wages are going to be reduced or not. No, we didn't discuss that. But it is true that referees, they are the best paid, the most paid referees in Europe, and we've explained the concepts, why they receive their remuneration. Sometimes clubs don't know about that, but we definitely have not considered reducing their income or their wages. Yes, I think that has already been explained, President. Sorry. Well, you always tell me about the bad things and the sad things. Anais, please. Good afternoon, President. I'm Anaís Martínez from La Vanguardia newspaper. I'm over here.
Le daré recuerdos de su parte.
Say hello to your friend who wrote that article some time ago. Well, what I wanted to ask you is if in the assembly, did you feel that the tone has been relaxed a bit? Have you done some self-criticism, and have you been thinking about what has happened in the case of President or Chairman Laporta and what you said? Well, no, there's been no self-criticism, and I think that, well, it was a perfect intervention. Very polite. Everybody was very polite, very correct. There has been no self-criticism. He delivered a summary of what he thinks is going on. And then as far as I'm concerned, well, no, I think that no self-criticism is required, because if you ask me about my opinion of the press conference that we gave yesterday, things were made clear, but it's not clear from my point of view. I'm not going to analyze all the press conference, of course, but in any case, I've pointed this out to him, and we are walking along different paths, and he wanted to have greater clarity, and that's it. And it is true, and it's true what I explained, that he isn't an irresponsible person, and I explained why. And many of the clubs have pointed out that what we are trying to reach here is an agreement. So there's no responsibility in our conduct, in the way we're behaving. So there should be no self-criticism involved. And I also pointed this out. What you can't do is reduce the level of harshness in these behaviors. We're not talking about anything that is specific. It's been 18 years. If it would have been only a few months or just 1 month, well, things would be completely different. And there were lots of presidents involved. So reducing this level, reducing the tone, as regards our audiovisual companies and sponsors, would be a big mistake, because what people want the institutions or want these companies to fight and to investigate to see if there's any corruption. At least you have to investigate and be very clear about what you want. What they don't want to do is hide it under the table and forget about what's going on. Chiringuito, hello, Juan de from Chiringuito. You said that you didn't believe the speech delivered by Laporta. No, he didn't clarify things. And when I don't think that he lied. He thinks that he's clarified certain issues, but I don't think that is the case. What about when you said that you didn't find that it was clear? How did he react? I don't know. We didn't hold a constant debate on this subject. He considers that things were sufficiently clear, and other clubs and myself believe the opposite. And the final question, I would like to know if all the clubs that have attended the assembly, did they ask Laporta for explanations, or was there anybody that didn't ask for an explanation, like Real Madrid, for instance? Did they ask him about things individually? No, not really. There was a first intervention, and with Juan Gil, who said lots of things, and there were other things that were very repetitive in the rest of the intervention. There was nothing new to add on. Or perhaps what they were doing is, I don't know, there were another 12 or 13 people that spoke. And in fact, we had to stop at a given point in time because there were too many people that wanted to speak. And I said, no, I think that things are sufficiently clear. Did Real Madrid intervene? No. Thank you. Well, I think that Real Madrid had it very clear in their mind. Ramon Samurri from Catalonia. I'd like to know what the relationship is like between you and Mr. Laporta, if things have changed after today's assembly. And are you going to be meeting up in the future to discuss things? And then, apart from the bar and the counter in the bar, what what do you think about the video from Real Madrid television? And does the La Liga have to say anything about that video? Well, La Liga has nothing to say about that video from Real Madrid television. But I think that what they've done is turn people's attention to other things. I don't need videos of that kind, personally. I think that this is like bringing back the dinosaurs again from the past, from the very distant past. That doesn't make any contribution. Nor does what they said about this team belonging to the Franco's regime or not. That doesn't make any difference. that doesn't contribute to anything either. But in any case, well, they are free to do whatever they want, and of course, and I can do nothing about that. What was the other question?
Vamos a ver, yo después he estado un par de minutos
Well,
hablando con él.
Well, I've spoken to him for 10 minutes, and I'm always try to maintain a positive relationship or a good relationship. That doesn't mean that I'm in favor of anybody, and I apply the same rules to Barcelona or anybody else. I mean, one thing is being polite, because, well, I once met up with Jean in Singapore. We had a great time together at a Grand Prix, but in any case, well, that doesn't mean that always applies, of course. But in any case, with Barcelona, well, there has been communication with Laporte. But one of the things that was pointed out very clearly is that he missed my telephone calls. Well, I said, no, that you should have called me, and not me you, to explain things and not us calling you. No, because you're the one that has committed that irregularity, what is supposed to be irregularity, and not anybody else. And what are we supposed to call you up to encourage you or to tell you not to do things like that in the future? But in any case, we always hold conversations with all the clubs, with all sorts of subjects. We've spoken to Barcelona about economic controls, but we do that with all the other clubs too. Well, perhaps with other presidents, there's not the same feeling. Well, perhaps that is the case, of course. But I never hide from anybody nor from anything. I'm always very clear and transparent about everything.
Hola Javier, Sergio Rodríguez Viñas, del Periódico de España. Dos preguntas, una sobre
From Periódico de España, two questions. One has to do with changing the refereeing process. Well, to what extent is the Negreira case going to exert an influence? Because this is an idea that dates back several years, and you wanted to create an independent body to deal with this issue. No, it was together with the Federation. No, it is together with the Federation. So the Federation has to be involved because we are an essential element here. We don't want to remove anything. We want more people to become involved, more stakeholders to become involved. And that's an important issue. And people have always asked me about all the elections that I've run for. And people have asked me, well, do you want to cover the referee issues? I said, no. Well, for 2 years ago, there's a lot of insatisfaction with the video refereeing system. And, well, what we have noticed is that we have to find the manner in which we can manage refereeing with the football players union and with the clubs, with the majority of the clubs and with the referees themselves. So we had to sit down around a table and discuss those issues. But has the Negreira case exerted any kind of influence? No, absolutely nothing, none whatsoever, at least as far as I know. Okay, there are lots of people here to ask questions. Yes. No, very quickly, you say that you don't think that Barcelona ever bought referees, but do you think that that money that was paid to Negreira ended up in the hands of people related to Barcelona, to the football club? I don't know. I can't really state anything along those lines. But in any case, the administrator of a club or a football club or a company, if you're paying invoices and if you don't have evidence to support that, well, that obviously means that there is an irregularity involved. And that is something that is very clear. Because here we'd add on another crime, which would be undue appropriation. So I think that I'm not sure if the investigation is going to focus on that line in the case of the prosecution. So there have to be real services rendered since 2010, and that's it. Basically, in a nutshell.
Hola, ahora. Rafa Fernández, Onda Cero.
Rafa Fernández, Onda Cero.
Esa encuesta que ha comentado, que si no he entendido mal,
that survey you mentioned, if I didn't misunderstand, it was 19 questions.
Una línea común en la gran mayoría de los clubes.
Is there a common line of thought in most clubs? If Real Madrid and Barcelona also agree with that new body, let's say, to manage the referee collective, And something I'd also like to ask about, recently we saw that Del Cerro Grande refereed a match in Greece. If referees in Spain are the best paid in the world, would it be possible to consider bringing in referees from other countries to referee here? Because if they make 100,000 in the Premier League, they may prefer to make 300,000 here. Well, let's see, in the votes, in some aspects, the majority felt that refereeing should be done by an outside company. Whether it was backed by Barcelona Madrid is a secret vote, I don't know. Real Madrid did speak there because they came with the preconceived ideas that La Liga wanted that competence and we don't want it. And I made it clear that we don't want it. And since we've made it clear, I was surprised because we've been saying it for a long time. But there's a majority feeling along those lines. There was another question. How much notice should be given on who's going to referee the match? Recently, there's a lot of discussion about this, and there's pressure from the media regarding the referees, and a lot of videos of mistakes the same referee has made. And in the survey, one possibility was to give notice of the referee the same day of the match. This apparently happens in the Basketball EuroLeague. They don't know who the referee is going to be until they walk through the door. But it seems that the majority would like to give shorter notice before the match, so there'll be further meetings with the clubs, because it's not an easy discussion. And a very interesting point that came up, and some clubs said that the problem with the referees is the criterion issue, the penalties, the handballs. And an important reflection is that the VAR referee has become a very important person in the matches, because the VAR referee is involved in the most important events, fouls in the area, penalties, handballs, and the play isn't interpreted by the referee on the pitch, but by the referee in the VAR. And all that has been discussed. And of course, this takes us to the conclusion of whether we have to have referees that are specialized in the VAR. And there was another question I forgot. We like them to referee Champions League matches. But the referees are paid for being available. But I'm not going to go into Cerro Grande refereeing a match in Greece. I prefer them not to go, or to have an agreement. But well, as long as they don't take all the referees on a given fixture, you know that La Liga and Javier Temas never limit the questions. But there are so many hands up, and we have limited time today. I have a plane to catch. So, otherwise, we'd have to stay till dinner time. After the first round, if we still have time, we'll start a second round, but let's make it agile.
Del Diario AS. Diario AS.
From the AS daily newspaper. A month ago, you said that if you weren't convinced by Laporta's statements, he should resign. you haven't been convinced today, so do you still think he should resign? Well, I already said it, so I'm not going to make a fuss about it. He said that he's elected by the members. Well, I don't think it's significant to repeat that again now. I have nothing to add. I still think the same. But I'm not going to go to war about it. The thing is to continue to work, to investigate, and things just haven't been clarified, that's all.
No, no se escucha, Sebas, perdón.
Hola, ahora sí. Bueno, Sebas Guim de TV3.
Sebas Guim, TV3. The assembly has been extremely long. You had time to talk about a lot of things. I don't know whether there were any questions regarding financial fair play. No. Wasn't on the agenda today.
Hola, Abraham Romero del Mundo. En relación a la pregunta anterior,
from El Mundo, regarding the previous question, have any clubs asked for Laporta to resign, or did they say that it would be the best for the situation? And since the agenda included the examination of the Negreira Barcelona case, did Laporta pass the exam? Well, there wasn't going to be an exam. It was a study, but that didn't mean that there was going to be an exam afterwards. I assume that he considers that he's passed the exam, but from my point of view, he hasn't clarified things. So for me, things are the same as they were yesterday. But again, I didn't want it to turn into an interrogation because it's not the place. And he came to give his explanations, and we were there to listen to his opinions. But we don't get into fights when we're together. No, the resignation, no. We didn't even go into that. I know it's very morbid and it's in a lot of the headlines, but it wasn't on the agenda today. Maybe next time. José Rodrigo, Radio Marca.
José Rodríguez, Radio Marca en directo, hablabas de que no se trataba de arrinconarle.
You were saying that it's not a matter of putting him in a corner. It wasn't an interrogation of Joan Laporta. I don't know whether any doubts been clarified after a Monday's press conference, or whether you let that opportunity go by. Well, I haven't spoken to all the clubs. But regarding the core fact of paying 7 million euros to the Negreira family, the doubts haven't been clarified.
Sí, pero es que yo creo que esto no hace falta con un interrogatorio de los que vemos en la tele de los juzgados.
It's not like an interrogation in court like we see on TV series. That wasn't the aim, because it's not the place. There was no interrogation. People just said that they didn't understand. We don't understand the explanation. And people said, well, my club has certainly never paid the vice chairman of the referees committee. And Joan Laporta clarified that clubs paid for refereeing advice, and the clubs are a little bit upset about that. And that statement that they put out in the early stages said that all clubs did it. But the press release was related to the news item, and everybody understood the clubs were paying members of the referees technical committee. And today he said that that wasn't what he meant. So that was something he clarified today.
Carlos Ganga de la cadena COPE. Ya ha dicho que José Ángel Sánchez no ha intervenido.
You said that José Ángel Sánchez didn't speak, that Real Madrid didn't speak, but I don't know whether you've been able to talk to José Ángel and learn firsthand what is the attitude of Real Madrid in this case. And what attitude have you seen in José Ángel while Laporta was given his explanations? Well, I don't focus on Jose Angel all the time. There are 42 clubs there. I just noticed that he's still wearing a beard, but I don't pay special attention to what Jose Angel Sanchez does then. And the attitude of Real Madrid. Well, we were talking about referees in general, but I think that the attitude of Real Madrid is just that they've appeared as a party to the case, and they've been backed by the prosecution office. Other cases of sports corruption in Spain, like the Huesca case or the Levante Zaragoza case, there have always been clubs that have appeared as a party, so there's no reason for them not to appear as a party. But Real Madrid has already shown its attitude. If people want to be more morbid about it, I'm not going to go into that. There are 2 people per club, 80 people there. And when the assembly finished, people left. There were planes to catch. There were some snacks for anybody that wanted to eat anything, but I just spent a couple of minutes with them. José Palacio for Cadena Ser. You were talking about the statement made by the referees' technical committee and the threatened strike, and you also mentioned the tension. The tension comes because of the statements made by the clubs. I don't know whether you talked to the clubs about it today. In these last pictures where everything is at stake, the representative from Valencia, Solís, made a very harsh attack against the referees. Have you asked the club to reduce the level of their public statement? Well, the level of the public statement is high, but that's the aim. The statement isn't from the technical committee. It's from referees' organization, but I know nothing about whether referees have given their support, whether they've signed it or not. I don't know. But since we don't see cause and effect, I think that the clubs are grown-up and they should know what statements they should put out. In the case of Negreira, there was a situation of tension at the beginning where people were throwing banknotes on the pitch and I don't know what. And we told all the clubs and the federation to be very careful about the refereeing issue and for radical fans to be monitored, because in the field of professional football, I haven't seen any incidents. Something happened with a non-professional referee, but I don't think there's a cause effect in what happened with the referee in Melilla. The people are angry, yes. No, Ceuta, sorry, not Melilla, Ceuta. But we haven't seen any incidents, and if we did, we would act, obviously. When the Negreira case started, we tried to look out for the referees to make sure they were safe, as we've done in the past, not just then. And we've also done it in certain circumstances, in places where the fans are very tense. But we can't be general about the statements made by clubs.
Hola, buenas. Manuel Malagón, del Diario Marca.
From Diario Marca. I would like to know whether clubs expected Florentino Perez to attend, and what do you think about his absence at an assembly where there was so much expectation? The presence of Florentino Perez wasn't expected, and his absence, and we have so many conflicts, it would be unusual for him to come. He hasn't come for many years. I think that Real Madrid is well represented by José Ángel Sánchez at LaLiga. He's the everyday executive. He's the executive that runs the club and that knows most about the club. And we have to consider that it's important for people to come to the meetings to know all areas. And sometimes the chairman don't know all areas. But no, he wasn't expected.
Hola.
David Robledo from Telemadrid. You said that you don't want the refereeing competences. La Liga doesn't want them, but you did say that there would be an autonomous body to control it from outside. But I think you said that Bundesliga and the Premier League have that body, and that those leagues have a majority stake. No, it's not a majority stake. In English football, Premier League 33%, the organization for the championship and the other two categories 33%, and federation 33%, and in the Bundesliga it's 51% federation, 49% Bundesliga. It's not a majority stake, neither directly or indirectly, although people insist. And if I could have an even smaller percentage, so much the better. The goal is not to create, well, the goal is to create a more transparent organization. And if it works there, why not do it here?
¿Qué tal, Javier? Jesús López de Estas Perform.
Hello, Jesus Lopez. If you said, if I'm not mistaken, that you believe that those payments were to exert influence on referees, although they didn't buy referees directly, but you also said a few weeks ago that no sanctions could be applied because what the law says and because of the deadlines. Doesn't Spanish football have a regulation issue? Because there are two things that are very difficult to understand here. Well, now with the new sports bill, the connection between the La Liga and its members has become much more private. And at the next assembly, we're going to modify the transcription period up to 10 years at least. So we're going to be following that path. Well, perhaps, well, these are modifications for these prescription deadlines, okay? And this changes because our discipline has to do with a company discipline. It's not a sports discipline. And we're going to add we're going to apply a 10-year period as a solution. And this is what most of the members want too. Because I think that one of the problems is that, well, this is a problem on an international scale, that is that it's too short a period of time. It has been too short until now. Ricardo del Coso for Onda Madrid. As regards the referees, are there any clubs that are upset about this? And if so, is there any club that mentioned this? Well, the debate in La Liga is very polite, and you have all the communiques. And we carried out a survey with a secret voting process, and that's because the president and the executive officers wanted to allow the clubs to do whatever they believed had to be done, whatever they believed is pertinent. But there has been a debate, and views have been expressed. And it was very clarifying for me too, because as regards what's going on with the referees, it's something that the clubs are experiencing firsthand. They suffer from that over the weekend. Well, not suffer, well, they have a bad time when things don't go well. And that's something that we want to learn more about today. Those of us that are the executives of La Liga have been fully aware of what has been going on. But you can see that some clubs are more upset than others, but the vast majority of them, what they want to do is help the referees themselves so that we can build a new path and so that we can copy the model that's working in other places, and let's give it a go, because what we can't do is nothing. And yesterday, the note that was released, I didn't like at all, but I think that we are lacking self-criticism too. It's an important thing. I think that for all of us, if we want to improve things, we have to be self-critical. We don't do everything well, neither the La Liga, nor the Federation, nor the referees. Nobody does everything correctly, 100% correct. And if there are lots of discrepancies or lots of statements against some of the actions exerted by the referees, not all of them, or some specific factors, that means that something is going wrong with the red cards, for instance. Yesterday, we presented some statistical data on the number of fouls. I'm not sure if it was 7,500 fouls, plus other leagues where they have half the number of red cards. And everything has been demonstrated and seen this year. And we have more sanctions this season. Our referees show more red cards this season than in the previous season, and the same applies to the rest of Europe too, because I looked up that information. So let's work on this. Let's try to work in a positive manner. Now, this is not a criticism. What I'm doing here is, what I'm saying is that we have to correct things, and that's it. Okay, well, let's see what has to be corrected. But not everything is supposed to be a criticism on our behalf, that everything is an absolute disaster or catastrophic. Or that people say that we want to get rid of the referees and this, that, and the other, but that is not true. But in any case, it's the football clubs themselves that don't want to have any confrontations with the referees or with the federation in this issue. We want to make progress. We want to progress towards the future of refereeing, as they've done in some of Europe's most advanced football leagues. And the federations, like is the case of Germany and England, where the federations are collaborating with a completely different refereeing system. Hello, Jerónimo Alonso from Canal Sur. President, I have a doubt and a curiosity too. And the curiosity is in the pictures that have been distributed, we can see that you say hello to Joan Laporta, both of you smile. But after having spoken a lot through the media, what did you say to each other? Good morning. No, you said more than good morning. No, good morning, and how things in Barcelona. What's the temperature like? No, I can't remember. Well, it was non-transcendental. Well, perhaps what I did do is mention what was going to happen when he touched upon the Negreira issue. In other words, how the timing had been scheduled. Although I cannot remember, I was still in shock. So, no, obviously not very important issues. And there's a doubt that I have that's very easy to clarify. In this new organization that regulates referees, is it okay with the Spanish legal framework? Yes. Well, there's no agreement yet with the Federation. Well, if we have to change it, well, if there's an agreement, we can change things. But what we want an agreement to be reached, and we want this to be developed. We don't want to do anything unilaterally, absolutely nothing unilaterally, because we're going to have to sit down and meet up with the referees or with the Federation, because, well, we have to establish an agreement in terms of their remuneration. Perhaps that would be the most suitable forum to discuss these subjects.
No está funcionando.
It's not working now. It is.
Adrián Rodríguez
from Europa Press. I wanted to ask you if Laporta, did he express concern about that possible UEFA sanction because of the European competitions? And do you think that as regards what the referees stated yesterday, this campaign that has been organized by different fronts, is it against the referees? Well, we didn't speak, Laporta and I, about UEFA. And what about an orchestrated campaign? There's no such thing as an orchestrated campaign. These notes have been released for a very long time. They started last year, where there's a lot of insatisfaction. I've already mentioned this. There's no such thing as an orchestrated campaign. There's a tremendous insatisfaction. And today, we were looking into what has to be done in the form of solutions to do something about this upset, because it's an issue that affects clubs and in particular certain matches. But we want to help and we want to make further progress. And it's the same thing with the red cards, and the same thing applies to penalties. Okay, well, we'll have to see what can be done to improve all of these things. And if there are so many clubs that are complaining, well, it's something that we'll have to solve in the football pitches. This is an essential element. So to play football, you need a football and referees. Those are the two basic elements. So referees are absolutely essential. We want to help so that we can all feel happy, and them too. But if we do nothing, it doesn't seem that we're going to be correcting anything either. So this is why there's this insatisfaction that is definitely not good for anybody. From Cadena Cope, Mr. President, you said that clubs are not convinced about the explanations that have been given by Laporta, but you've also spoken about anger. Not anger that he showed after the press conference. Is he still angry or is he less angry? Well, yes, I think that he's less angry because, well, we have to thank President Laporta for having attended the assembly. That's very positive. Perhaps he should have come earlier than this, but in any case, well, due to circumstances that have to do with reports, perhaps he couldn't make it or didn't want to make it. And he was here in front of the rest of my colleagues. So that means that he's not that angry. He will convince or not convince, I don't know. But at least he came along to meet up with everybody else. And I think that it's important for somebody, the president of Football Club Barcelona, for these big people to come along to explain things to the assembly. That's an important thing, and it's a positive move. And well, perhaps a completely different issue is whether you've been convinced or not. We have a couple of questions here in remote. Fernando Sanz from 5 Días. Fernando, please allow me to reduce it because it's very lengthy. But what it says is that if through justice, if anybody is charged, if any personality in the world of football is charged because of sport manipulation, what kind of effect would this have as regards betting and loss of profit because of changes or because of manipulations in the game and therefore because of manipulations in betting? Well, we've already had a case of that, the case of Osasuna, where there was a betting issue involved, and we had some other case too. But the effect, well, betting companies want this to be investigated and they want things to be solved too. And this is not the case because, well, here, and I have to repeat this again, our opinion is that the referees were not being bought. Perhaps you could influence some appointment. There was a case in Italy, Moggi, and it's not because a referee was bought, but rather because the appointments of referees was manipulated. So it seems that what you're trying to do is exert some influence, but this certainly doesn't affect the betting sector. And we have Manuel Maruña from Mundo Deportivo. Messi, do you think that Messi will be signed on by Barcelona? Not today. But there's still a long time ago, so we're still waiting for a feasibility plan. They have other players that have to be registered. They can sell players too. So there are several approaches to this issue. Well, David isn't here today, and it's difficult to explain this. But as far as La Liga is concerned, let's only hope that Football Club Barcelona does whatever has to be done so that they can sign on Lionel Messi. Let's only hope that they can get that done. I'm a big fan of Leo Messi. I think that he's the best player in the world, and let's only hope that they'll do it. But we're obviously not going to change any economic control rules approved by the clubs for Leo Messi to be included in the plan. I think that Barcelona can get things done so that they can eventually sign on Messi. And let's only hope that that happens, because I would love to see Leo Messi back in our competition again. And it seems that according to what I have been reading about lately, it might be a possibility. We're not going to change today, but if Barcelona can do something about it to have Messi join, well, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be complicated, but I think that they might be able to do it, and let's only hope that they would achieve that goal, because it would be wonderful to have Leo Messi back in our competition again. And there's another question here from La Diara Xavi Hernandez. Does anybody ask Laporta how much he's paying for referee advisory consultancy services? Well, there was a comment there, but it wasn't a question really when I was intervening. I think that it was a guy called Segura who's the referee consultant. Well, okay, everything has been covered, I think. Thank you all very much. That's it. Goodbye.